Good afternoon. It's the 27th of April, and this particular video is for persimmons lovers. I discovered these persimmons trees. There's going to be 3 of them that I'm going to demonstrate here and feature. And I have limited knowledge about who planted these trees. It was a long time ago. I made some inquiries. It's in the Lancaster area, so it's rather cold here compared to where I live in 7A in South Jersey. These are huge trees, big trees, old trees. I've known about these trees for many years, and I discovered them by accident one day while my wife was shopping. And the thing that stood out about these American persimmons trees, and these are the modified versions of American persimmons, Native American persimmons. I don't know what modification specifically it is, if they're Prague, if they're Yates, if they're... I have a funny feeling that from all the reading that I've been able to do over the years, I have a feeling that this is early gold, by the description of the persimmons, which are delicious. They are so divine. For an American persimmons, they're creamy and they're sweet, and they have a wonderful texture and taste. I love them, and I grafted this tree. I grafted this tree to one of my trees in New Jersey, and it is growing quite nicely. It's going to take a while, but I did it several years ago, and it's growing quite nicely. I favor this tree. There's 2 females and 1 male, which makes a good pollinator. American persimmons really do need a pollinator nearby in order to produce abundantly and with higher quality fruit. So I come back here often when I'm taking my wife shopping nearby, and we come here. It's a peaceful place. Again, I don't know if it's Prague. I don't know if it's a meter. I don't know what American persimmons it is, what modified version or variety of American persimmons it is, but I know that it's a big producer of delicious fruit. And of all of the persimmons that I've ever really eaten indigenously, I have to say it's the best tasting I've ever tasted. Now this is another large fruit, another large persimmons tree, bigger even. And you can see how big it is, very large. And this is also a female tree and produces an abundance. It's huge. An abundance of fruit. The fruit is very delicious, but it doesn't compare to what I call the early gold American modification of American persimmons. What this one is, I don't know. I just don't know. I've studied it. I've studied so many persimmons trees. I can't tell. But it is a modified version of American persimmons. How do I know it's modified? Because the fruit is larger, less seeds, sweeter and more delicious. So through human selection, and that's how we get to a modified persimmons, through human selections. Not much different than chickens and pigeons and dogs. How did we get all these different breeds of dogs? Well, we get them through human selection, not natural selection, not Charles Darwin selection, through evolutionary means, but through human selection, by humans choosing the characteristics that they desire in a certain tree, an animal, dog, pigeon, whatever, okay? And we're talking the same with cows and pigs and racehorses. It's all the same. It's human selection. And deliberately selecting those specimens that they feel the traits of which would benefit them most. and then they go ahead and they keep reproducing or keep multiplying them and breeding one to the other. Of course, with trees, you cross-pollinate them, and you do it that way, or you just simply pick the best of the seedlings, and you start grafting trees, and you start figuring out which ones might be a superior sport to another, or variant, and you propagate that. You keep propagating it, and then eventually you arrive at what they call a modified version of the original indigenous American persimmons, which is smaller, more seedy, very, very good, has good qualities. I think has a good texture. I like them. They're astringent, of course, and meaning that they're the type of persimmons that when you bite into them, if they're not perfectly ripe, you're going to know it. It's going to be an awakening experience. But once they are ripened thoroughly, they're delicious. American persimmons are delicious. The Japanese persimmons are larger. They're very much different than the American persimmons. And you have two types, the astringent and the non-astringent. I prefer the astringent in all persimmons, personally. I prefer to wait for them to get ripe. But with the Japanese persimmons, they're larger and they have less seeds or no seeds, like the Seijo or the other versions that I'm sure some people that are persimmons lovers are familiar with. There's so many varieties. But I don't really think that the texture and the taste really is as good as the American persimmons. A few varieties are, like Seijo, Saijo, which my favorite Japanese persimmons. Is one of the best fruits I've ever grown in my entire life, and it's the most cold hardy, down to 10 degrees below zero, which is a distinct advantage if you want to grow Japanese persimmons in my zone 7A, or maybe one zone down colder, and as many up as you want to go. So no other persimmons comes close. No other Japanese persimmons comes close for winter hardiness than Seijo. But I speak about this in my other videos. I don't want to get carried away in that. But let me get back on track here. This is a male tree, and you can see it's an old tree. It's a beautiful tree, and it pollinates the other two, and so it doesn't fruit. It's a very large tree. These three trees I found long ago, many years ago, and I just love visiting here whenever I'm nearby. It's sort of like I don't know, it's a very peaceful area. I hear woodpeckers and I hear animals. It's not far from traffic too. I think you can maybe hear it in the background. But it's just a beautiful little piece of nature in the middle of almost nowhere. And surrounded by businesses, yes, but they're not too close. And these trees have provided me with a lot of pleasure over the years. And I thought I might want to share it with you. They're not flowering yet. It's too early in the season. They soon will. And I'll be back here for sure for the harvest. I come back every year several times, and I make sure that I taste these special persimmons, because they are indeed very special to me. So with that, I just want to recommend that anybody out there that has been thinking about growing persimmons in their yard, anybody out there that wants to give it a chance, try the modified American versions. They're very winter hardy, much more winter hardy than the Japanese persimmons. And so if you live in a colder zone than 7A, you might want to consider these American persimmons modifications. And there are several that you can choose from. You can read about them. They're all going to make you happy. They're all going to produce abundantly. They're all going to be superb and delicious. And eventually, you'll find the one that you like the most. This is the one. This one I like the most. Of all the persimmons and all over the course of my entire life, I've never tasted a persimmons, an American modified version persimmons that pleased me more than this one. Okay. Thanks for visiting. Good day.